Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's CAS webinar, You Can't Give What You Don't Have. My name is Rosie O'Brien-Wojtek, and I'm the Assistant Executive Director for the Connecticut Association of Schools. Although last year became known as the year like no other, this year seems to be even more challenging. Navigating the daily ups and downs of COVID-19, economic cause and effect fallout from the pandemic, and the consistent barrage of misinformation and attacks across the political landscape are all taking their toll on educators. We all know it's crazy out there, and so we're very fortunate to have Dr. William Sommers joining us today to share strategies for taking care of ourselves first, so we're ready to take care of others. I hope you're as excited as I am to learn more about this topic, so let's get started. Today's CAS webinar is being brought to you in part by our corporate partners, Horace Mann, College Funding Coach, MCM Fundraising, Jostens, and Pullman and Cumley. We thank them for their continuing support of CAS professional development for all principals and educators in Connecticut. We're very excited to bring you this webinar and glad that you're joining us today. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the CAS website so you can view it later and share it with your colleagues as well as your faculty and staff. Please use the chat feature as a way to stay actively engaged in the learning during the session to let us know if you have any technical issues, as we will be monitoring the chat. In addition, we will be monitoring the Q&A feature and we'll try to answer as many of your questions as we can during the session. So please ask your questions in the Q&A. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. William Sommers. Dr. Sommers is joining us today from Austin, Texas, where he currently lives. He continues to be a learner, teacher, principal, author, leadership coach, and consultant. Bill has come out of retirement multiple times to put theory into practice as a principal. During his career, Bill has been a consultant for leadership coaching, cognitive coaching, adaptive schools, brain research, poverty, habits of the mind, conflict management. Bill is a certified Y.OS coach and consultant and works with leveraging polarities. He's a practitioner who integrates theory into learning and facilitating schools. Dr. Sommers continues to coach school leaders as he has done for over 30 years. Beginning in 2003, Bill served on the Board of Trustees for the National Staff Development Council, now called Learning Forward, for 5 years and was elected president of NSDC Learning Forward in 2006. Dr. Sommers is the former executive director for secondary curriculum and professional learning for Minneapolis Public Schools and has been a school administrator for over 35 years. He's been a senior fellow for the Urban Leadership Academy at the University of Minnesota and has served as an adjunct faculty member at Texas State University, Hamline University, University of St. Thomas, St. Mary's University, Union Institute, and Capella University. In addition, he's been a program director for an adolescent chemical dependency treatment center and on the advisory board of a halfway house for 20 years. In addition to all of this, and I don't know where he finds the time, Bill has co-authored over 10 books, including his most recent book, Creating Talent Density, published this year by Rowman Littlefield. In January 2016, Bill and his colleague Skip Olson launched the website www.learningomnivores.com, which includes educational posts, new rules, and book reviews. So be sure to check it out. It's now my pleasure to welcome my colleague and good friend, Dr. William Sommers. Take it away, Bill.
Well, thank you, Rosie. Sounds like I can't keep a job. So anyway, one of the things that we keep talking about and what I keep hearing about is principals and leaders that are under such pressure right now. Several are thinking about leaving the profession. So that's what generated the interest in this. And I'm always curious about what keeps people together. Next, Bob, Your Honor. Here's some assumptions I'm going to work off of. One is knowledge is important and it's insufficient. If you can't do something with the knowledge, if you can't put it into play, it probably is not as worthwhile to yourself as organizations. I'm always looking for multiple mental models that'll help me move ahead and learn so that I can facilitate and help move systems forward. About 30 some years ago, a friend of mine, Suzanne Bailey, said, "You're a synthesizer." And I think that has proven to be true because I try to draw from not only business education, spirituality, etc. My why. I recently got certified as a why trainer from the organization YOS. And what I found was my why I'm in education is I'm a contributor. I like to contribute to learning myself and contribute to others. How I do that is I challenge status quo. If it isn't working or not working as well as I want it to, or there are groups that are not being successful, I will challenge that. And my what is I'm always looking for a better way. I can't have enough. So ultimately, what I want is to build repertoire so I have flexibility to address multiple people and groups and the emotional agility to be able to respond to that and deal with it more effectively. Next. If you haven't heard VUCA, most people have heard it now, but on the left side, we are in a time of volatility, validity, or you know what it means. Okay, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's really hard to get a handle on what is happening because there's so many pieces to it. Next. So the way we deal with that is a vision. Find your why. Why are you in this business? Vision without action, though, is just a nice dream. So we've got to be able to make that happen. Understanding, I really recommend the newest book that Dan Heath wrote called Upstream. So we look back at what caused some of these issues. Peter Senge, Russ Ackoff, Demings, et cetera, have talked about systems thinking for years. But just because we see the event, it's kind of like the old iceberg. Clarity, probe for specificity. Anybody here have more time than you need? So let me give you an example. One night about 5:30, when I was a principal in the inner city, I had a call and the parent said, "Your school sucks." I might have you think about how you might respond to that. So here's what I did. The whole school? And the response was, "No, it's that math department." Well, think about it. I just moved from 125 teachers down to 13. And I said, the whole math department sucks? No, it's that Mr. Lindquist guy. Well, Steve and I taught together in the 70s, and he's a great teacher. And I said, what did Mr. Lindquist do or say that causes you to say that he sucks? She said, well, Brian failed the last geometry test. I now have a problem that I think I have something to say about. What was I supposed to do? Call a staff meeting and tell everybody to quit sucking? So quite frankly, we have to use our linguistic skills to try to clarify what the question is or what the problem is. And I can't remember who said it, but a well-defined problem is half solved. Agility, I talked about that just briefly. Emotional responsiveness. Do I have the repertoire and the ability to respond in the moment? And if you don't know about Susan David, she wrote a book called Emotional Agility, and she runs a free website. Susan David, I would strongly recommend getting on her website. Next. So the first question I would ask you is, who do you hang with? Do you hang with people who sap you and suck you dry? Or do you hang people who zap you and energize you? There's a Maori proverb that says, never spend time with people who don't respect you. Now, as a principal and a district leader, I sometimes don't have the option to say, I'm not going to spend time with you. But what I can do is put limits on that and put some boundaries. And boundaries around someone who is always negative or whatever. And you know those people who keep showing up, they're chronically complaining. Well, it takes no courage to chronically complain. What's the issue? So I try to limit my time spend with people who are negative and want to get into a downward spiral. On the other hand, I want to spend time with people who zap me and energize me and um, attempt to get my curiosity going. So one of the things as a principal I would always do when I had a down day, walk down and see a teacher teach. See that magic between a teacher and the kids. That is what I'm in school for. And it always is a exciting and an energizing time to see kids learning. Next. So time's your most valuable resource and it's non-renewable. So Margaret Wheatley in one of her books, Turning to One Another, asked this question: am I willing to take time to think? And I'm going to pause just for a minute. I'm coaching a couple of principals right now where I have suggested that they find a broom closet or someplace where they can get away from the day-to-day press and just clear your mind, breathe deeply, and try to get some energy back. Now, where I used to go was the auditorium because we didn't teach a class in there. Lights are off and I could spend 5 or 10 minutes just trying to recenter myself. Actually, I'm substitute teaching in a Montessori program right now in Austin, Texas. And they start every class with a centering, 1 or 2 minutes, have the kids just center, think about things. Sometimes we lead them with a question. But here's a question I think you really need to answer. Are you willing to take time to think? Because in the press of the day, you got a lot coming at you. Sometimes you need a break. You've got to rest that monkey mind and get to a more relaxed, calming state. Next. 5 things you can't change. Everything changes and ends. Who thinks that we're going to go back to a school as we knew it 2 years ago? It's changing, and that maybe ends. Now, there might be some things that we're going to continue, but every cycle, technology, all kinds of things will cause us to change, and things will end and things will start. Things don't always work out as planned. Duh. That's called science. Whatever your plans are, know that there's going to be rocks in the road. General Eisenhower and President Eisenhower said, plans in battle are useless. But the fact that you plan is absolutely important. So plan what you can, because the more you plan and for changes that can happen, the better off you are because you got a place to go. Life isn't fair. Well, you know how many kids say, well, that ain't fair, that which interprets to mean I didn't get what I want. So my answer, living in Minneapolis for 35 years, is fair happens 10 days around Labor Day. So other than that, fair depends on what whose ox is getting gored and are you getting what you need. Pain is part of life. Rosie mentioned Skip Olson, and he is no longer with us. So there are people that are important to us, and pain is part of life. It's part of a life cycle, and we have to deal with it. People are not always loyal and loving all the time. Well, again, duh. Sometimes you have bedfellows that maybe don't trust you, but they get what they want and they're there. But as a leader, you really have to know who's going to be with you at crunch time, because there are going to be crunch times coming up. Next. Positivity. Now I'm going to refer to Barbara Fredrickson's work in a minute, but why do you want to focus on positivity? Not only does it feel good, but when you're in a positive mode, you're much more open to possibilities. When you're in a negative mood, you start narrowing down, your brain starts narrowing down, and you can't see as many options. Being positive can transform the future. Marshall Goldsmith, who I'm certified to be, use his training, coined the term feed forward. Not much you can do about what happened in the past. You can learn from it, but it really depends on what you're going to do in the future. So you want to intercede in a negative negativity, and sometimes you got to stop people from drawing everybody else down. We know there's negative Nellies and negative Neds all over the place, but sometimes there are some really great people who have a good focus on the future and a can-do attitude. When you have some positivity, it really does help you move, and it makes a difference on how you respond. You can increase your own positivity. One is, I've already talked about, hang around people who zap you. There are 2 or 3 people when I'm really down that I make a phone call to and say, can I run this by you? And usually they know that I'm not perfect all the time, but they will give me good feedback. And it's just nice knowing that there are people I can talk to and sometimes turn a kind of a down day into a more positive day. Next. So here is some research from John Gottman, who wrote a book, Why Marriages Succeed and Why Marriages Fail. He says you need a 5-to-1 positive to negative. Now, we all know that the negatives have more life, have a longer shelf life. Matter of fact, I remember years ago when I did a workshop of 100 people, the person who sponsored it said, you want to look at the feedback. And I, of course, said yes. And I took them on the plane. And I literally read about 97 that were positive and 3 were negative. What do you think I spent my time thinking about in the next 2 weeks? The 3 out of the 100, because they gave me some negative feedback. Now, I could have said, what were they smoking when they went to this workshop? But that didn't help, because the negative it always impacts you at a higher rate. So Gottman says here's kind of a process that you go through. There's anger, something didn't work or something is not going as well as you wanted to. And that's one thing, so you can pay attention to that. But listen for criticism. When people start criticizing each other, it usually is around something that they believe or something they want to do. That's bad enough, but if you don't address it and try to respond to it, you get into contempt. And if you hear contempt, it's not only do I criticize your ideas, now I have contempt for you as a person. When that happens, put your radar on, because there are problems that are going to be ahead. Matter of fact, he says it's a critical one in marriages when contempt happens, because then people get defensive about what they believe. Finally, if again unaddressed, it goes to silence. Now they're not even talking, and then they separate. Now it happens in schools, it happens in departments, grade levels, etc. So I watch for that process. Those 6 bullets, I kind of adjusted it. Gottman has 4, but I kind of adjusted it to what my experience is as more of a building principle. Barbara Fredrickson wrote the book Positivity, and there's in the references you'll see Fredrickson's work. She says it's got to be 3-to-1. So when you think about it and your day goes on, are you giving 3 positives to every maybe negative or neutral comment that you make? Because if you're not the merchant of hope, I don't know who is going to be. They always look to the leader. And so it's a heavy burden. I get that. But guess what? You signed on, you want to be a leader. It means you got to step up. And if you don't have it, it's hard to give it. So we don't get as much as we should. We get too much blame and not enough credit. So much for leadership, but it does not absolve us from the responsibility of trying to help and be a facilitator of hope. Next. So here are, Barbara Fredrickson had 10 different forms of positivity. Joy, gratitude, and you can read those. What are your interests? Do you have hope, pride in what you do, amusement? It's something, because schools are really funny places. I remember trying to catch smokers in a high school, and I slipped on the ice in Minnesota, fell on my rear end, rolled over, had crap all over my suit coat and everything else. And I looked up on the edge of the wall of the outside of the building. It says Sommers sucks. Now, I could have been mad all day about that, but it was kind of funny. I stepped on the ice, trying to catch smokers, look like crap, but okay, schools are funny places. There are serious places as well, but sometimes things happen that are pretty funny. Inspiration, what gives you inspiration and awe? Sometimes I go and I see a teacher teach, I go, wow, I wish I could do that. So take about 30 seconds here, and if we had more time, we would do breakout rooms and whatever. However, which ones are you good at? One of those 9? Yes, I said 10. I'll get to that in a minute. Which ones could you focus on? Are there one of those 9 that you might say, maybe I'm going to work on that this week or month, or maybe it's a gratitude is a big one, because what we know about gratitude is not only does the person receiving gratitude get a dopamine hit, the person giving gratitude gets a dopamine hit. So how do we do that? Next slide, Bob. And the 10th one is love. Now, I'm not going to get into our personal relationships, etc., but actually Kuznets and Posner in a book called Truth About Leadership talk about love. We don't talk about that a lot, but I love working with kids. You know, when I hear a kid say, "Oh, I get it," that just makes my day when a kid finally gets something. I remember talking to one of my teachers in a former school, and I asked, name was Jamie Cornell, he was a chemistry physics teacher, and he said, "What keeps you in education?" And he said, "To see a kid do things that he never thought he could do." I said, I love this guy. So we know that when you feel connected to people, oxytocin, progesterone levels increase, the biological responses of togetherness, it really does help. So you all can probably relate to a time when you really felt that love surge within you. Well, can we create that over learning? Can we create that over collaboration? Can we create that over the results that we get when sometimes it just doesn't seem like it's working and all of a sudden it clicks? Because of you, it clicks. You as a leader are the ones that make that click. So next. FOMO Nojo or Gojo Mojo. FOMO, fear of missing out. This diverts us and it keeps our monkey mind diverted. And so much is coming in because we're fearful that we missed something. And then there's a Nojo where there's people that are just, I don't care what you say, it's no. You can buy them a new Cadillac and nope, won't work here. You know, all the whole list of reasons that some people who are kind of negative, and I call it Nojo. Actually, Marshall Goldsmith wrote this in a book called Mojo, which I'm coming up to. Gojo, I want to hang with people who are ready to go. Let's go for something. Let's try something. I know Rich Sheridan, who wrote Joy Inc. In Menlo Innovations, talks about run the experiment, try something, see if it works. I just love that attitude. Go, go, go. It's really efficacy. And Mojo is what the title of a book that Marshall Goldsmith wrote, and I'm going to talk about that next. Next. Mojo Dilemma. I think what really pulls us down sometimes is the mismatch between what you give the job, because what I found is, and there are certainly exceptions, but people in education are given their whole mind and body to helping kids, helping colleagues, helping their bosses, etc., do great work. But what is the job giving you? And that's where we're going to have to be a little bit more selfish by what do we get out of it? How do we hang with people who can talk to us about that, because when there's a mismatch and you think that I'm giving everything and I'm not getting much, what happens is you start, sometimes you can get bitter about it because it's not enough. So we need to figure out how to replenish ourselves. And I've got some behaviors coming up that we'll talk about a little bit more. Next. Mojo killers. I think most of you know this, but again, this comes out of the business world. Overcommitting. I'm a contributor. I like to contribute to my own learning and others. That's probably why I do leadership coaching now that I'm not as a principal. Although if you got a job, let me know. I'm ready to go. Overcommitting. As a contributor, one of my things I have to really watch is overcommitting. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And a lot of us in education are used to doing everything with nothing. So we overcommit, and that can really get to us and just stretch us out so thin that we have nothing left to give. And if you don't have enough to give at the office, are you going to have enough to give at home? Or your situation, wherever your significant others or other people that are important in your family. So overcommitting can get you in real trouble, even though it's the right thing, you want to help, but sometimes you got to focus on, I can do a couple of these things, I can't do everything. You can do something, but you can't do everything. Waiting for the facts to change. This is one that really, I love when a person says, well, I'm just going to wait till we get back to normal. Oh, really? You think we're going back to normal, meaning go back to where we were 2 years ago? And you can think about that all the way along your career. Has it ever gone back? Now, there are things that we take forward that have been good things, and we want to keep those, but it probably is not going to go back. I mean, you look at what technology is driving. The world is flat. I mean, there's so many competitors where in America, we used to be kind of out there by ourselves, and now everybody's catching up and surpassing us in many ways. So if you're going to wait for the facts to change, good luck. You can be on the right track, but get run over by a train if you just sit there. The third one here, looking for logic in all the wrong places. So many times it is about emotions, it's not about logic. And here again, I will refer to a book called Switch by the Heath brothers. And they use the metaphor as you as the writer is a logical person, and you're riding an elephant. And the elephant is the emotion. And you're trying to go down a track. You have a path that you're trying to go down. Well, you can have all the logic in the world, but I'm guaranteeing you, if the elephant decides going to go off the path, you're going off the path, because you're not going to be able to control the elephant, which is the emotions in the room. So not only do we have to control our own emotions to have that, because we're going to have to help others control their emotions. So that's why it's so important that you have what you're going to give. And you have to make sure that you're intact, so you're available to help others in the school or your organization that you're working in. Number 4, bashing a boss. I hate to admit this, but I've done that. I think many of us have. And the last principalship that I did have, I worked for a boss that Dennis Peterson has just announced his retirement in Minnetonka. Tremendous educator. I not necessarily did we always agree, but I'm telling you, he was committed to kids and learning in the community. He was my last boss, and I did not bash him. I just respected him so much, and but I have engaged in that, and it's just not. Matter of fact, Ray Dalio, in a book called Principles, when he's retired now, but he said, we have a rule. You can't talk about anybody who's not in the room. I thought that was a pretty good rule. So when we think about how Facebook and other things can be used for good and used for evil, we have to think about that. And number 5, refusing to change because of some cause. if you're not familiar with the term sunk costs, I think I wrote a new rule on learning omnivores. You might want to check it out. The sunk cost basically is, okay, I put all this money into a curriculum and they don't use it anymore. And so I'm mad about that. Well, good luck. That's not going to help you. It's gone. You've spent the money. It's over. What are you going to do next? Sunk costs are things that you've done. It could be emotional costs. It could be financial costs, time costs. When it's over, it's over. You got to figure out how to move on. And a lot of us end up thinking about the past, and it keeps us stuck. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it is important that sometimes if it's sunk, get over it, move on. As the Eagles song says, get over it. Next. 4 ingredients that will help you have great mojo. And I think this is where we're going to start talking about some things that you can do. Now think about the number 1. You've heard this. Who do you think you are? Let me say that again. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Because if you don't think you're self-worthy and responsible and efficacious, others probably are not going to think of that either. So your own identity is really important. Do you think you're a good person? Do you think you've got something to give? Are you creative? Are you a problem solver? So who do you think you are? You've got skills. And I'm going to suggest that one of the things you can do is start making a list of those. And if you have to, put it up on the mirror so you see it every morning. Maybe you're shaving or combing your hair. I don't have any hair anymore, but sometimes you got to make a list. I have a stroke file, and when I was a principal, I still have it. A stroke file. Anytime I got a positive, I put it in a file, because there are days when it's just not good, and I would take out the stroke file. Gee, somebody thought I did something good. But who do you think you are? What are your skills? What do you bring to the table? And without you, it's not going to be as good. So I want you to think about who you are and how you contribute to others and to kids. Achievement. What have you done lately? I would recommend Lencioni's book, 4 Obsessions of a CEO. People forget. I've done this. Well, I told them in August we were doing this at the pre-meeting. I haven't changed. Well, it's January and people forget. So what have you done lately? One of the things that I try to do is teach a class. One time I taught 12 weeks of a math class because I screwed up the schedule. But what have you done lately to accelerate the adult learning in your school? What have you done lately to get better at leadership? What have you done lately? Number 3, reputation. Here's something you can get over. You don't get to choose your reputation, because other people are going to determine what your reputation is. Now, you have behaviors that can contribute to that, but if you're worried about your reputation, it's really about what other people think and have seen you do. It's not just, again, you can be the best book learner possible, but what do you do that is some behaviors, taking actions that people believe what you say you do. So the farther that what you say and what you do are separate, there's less trust. The closer they are, there's more trust. And number 4, be real clear about what you can change and what's beyond your control. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to like it, and it doesn't mean that you don't have creative ways to maybe change things that are beyond your control or manage up, which we'll talk a little bit more in January or February when we do another workshop on emotional anorexia. If you want a precursor to that, again, go to my website. I wrote a new rule on emotional anorexia. But you got to be real clear on what you can change and what you can't. And sometimes it depends on somebody else. Next. Mojo, let's get a new definition. It's that positive spirit that starts from the inside and outside. People know when you've got good mojo, good karma, because it just glows outside of you. And I'm going to suggest to you as a leader, when you have good mojo, people are attracted to that. They're looking for someone who can put a positive, a can-do attitude rather than, oh God, this is bad and it's never going to get any better. I don't want to work for that. Matter of fact, the Gallup organization in First Break All the Rules said people leave bosses, they don't leave organizations. So be that leader, be that person who has good mojo. And if you have it, it comes out and people recognize that. Even if they don't say it, they can feel it. They can see it in action. Next. High hope. Why do we want hope? Because the future, we hope it's going to be better. And hope is really important. Without hope, people tend to go internal and end up in a negative spiral down. You have the power to make things happen. And efficacy, not only as a teacher, and leadership efficacy is a high degree of relationship to student achievement. But I'm going to say it's a high degree of efficacy also leads to adult achievement. How do we accelerate adult learning? Because from my experience, the adults who are learning produce kids that are learning. And I know I read that someplace, somewhere down the line. I bet somebody on this call probably knows where that research is. But if I don't think I have the power to do anything, then I tend to just kind of fold. So my God, get up and let's go get at it. Number 3 is about creativity. There are several books on creativity, especially in the business world, that we don't have time to go into here, but trust me, you get a group of people and sometimes, one quick example in the book Creativity by Ed Catmull, he was the president of Pixar. And he talks about Brad Bird when they did Toy Story. And Brad Bird said, give me your misfits and the craziest people you got. And he put that team together. It wasn't easy, but they came up with a great film. So sometimes you got to get your outliers or your mavericks or whatever to the table and come up with some creative ideas. Again, using systems thinking, etc., to figure out how we get to an outcome. And sometimes it's not a straight line. Sometimes it's a very circuitous route. And nothing is free of obstacles. So you're going to have pebbles in your shoes. You're going to hit rocks in the road. There are going to be walls. And you got to think about how you get over, under, around, through walls or obstacles. But if it's the right issue, if it's the right vision, if it's right for kids, it's right for adults, then let's figure out ways to do that. Next. So this came from Sean Lopez, I think University of Kansas wrote a book called Making Hope Happen. Think about this for a second. Memory grips the past. So we remember, oh, that didn't work 5 years ago, or gee, the consequences were bad. Well, sometimes based on 5 years ago, things have changed and maybe that would work now. But sometimes our memory keeps us focused on the past. Hope gets us focused on the future because we believe something better is possible. I want to work with hopeful people. I think we're in trouble in education, but I am hopeful that some of the giants out there, the Tony Wagners, the Andy Hargraves, the John Safirs, Art Costas, I'm hoping that future can be materialized for our kids because they deserve it. And so do the people working in education. Next. So this was an acronym that I came up with when I was president of NSDC. And it was one of the articles I wrote during the year that keeping hope alive, that's part of what we do as leaders. And so honesty, you got to look at data and take an honest look at the data and you deal with things honestly, and also keep humility. When somebody says, well, I already know everything, well, then there's nothing I can do for them. Especially if I'm a leadership coach. It's one of the checks that I do right away. If you don't have humility, I don't know everything. I'm still trying to learn. I try to hang around people who are really, really creative and really smart. Because, well, when I teach leadership courses, I tell new leaders, I say, you better be able to say two phrases with total authenticity. One is, I'm sorry, because you're going to screw up. You thought it was this, it turned out to be that, it didn't work out, I'm sorry. You have to make some amends. The other one is, I don't know. Does anybody else know? Because use the group intelligence rather than trying to come up with the answer. The days in the 50s and whatever, where there was one right answer and principals stayed in their office, that's just not going to happen anymore. So honesty and humility, the O is for options. Creating options. There's multiple ways to get someplace. And we need to consider all options and the plus and the downside, but be open to trying things. As I said, Richard Sheridan wrote about this in Joy Inc., as well as Ray Dalio talks about radical open-mindedness and radical transparency. That's what leaders need. P, patience. I just have to admit to you that I'm not the most patient person. I'm working on it, but I don't know. I'll probably go to my grave being, well, bury me for crying out loud. So patience. I don't buy green bananas. So let's get at it. As Angela Arian said one time in a workshop, if your job is waking up the dead, get up. Today is a work day. And persistence. How do we persist? Sometimes we quit when we're 3 feet from goal. But also you have to know when to fold them as well. So patience, just maybe, it's kind of a downside for me, but anyway, I'm working on it. It's something I try to work on. The E is for efficacy. You can't do everything. You can do something. So one of the things I really liked about John Saphir's book on high expectation teaching is 50 ways to help kids know they're smart, so that they know that they can do things. I thought it was one of the best books I ever read. So I highly recommend it. High Expectation Teaching by John Saphir. Enthusiasm. I had an AP when I was in one of the inner city schools, said, how do you come to work every day so fired up? And I said, who in the heck wants to who wants to follow anybody who walks in like they're dead to the world? And you gotta fire yourself up and try to hang with people who also give you enthusiasm. So that's my organizers for hope. Sometimes I used to have that on my whiteboard, and then I put a 3x5 up, not 3x5, but a 8.5 by 11 sheet to remind me, am I being honest? Am I open? Am I giving patience? Because I need to have patience. Am I enthusiastic? So that is kind of an organizer for me, and hopefully it'll be something that'll help you think about hope. Where am I not operating at the highest level right now? Next. So what can you do? That's what you came for, I think, signed up for this. So number one, I talked about the 3-to-1 positivity ratio. I've gotten a habit because as a principal, sometimes you deal with some really heavy stuff and really negative stuff. So I try to do once a day, call some parent and say something good about a kid. Now, when I first started, it was like, what did he do? But after a while, people understood that I just want you to know that I saw your son help a special ed kid who was in a wheelchair uh, get lunch. I don't care what it is, but we need to pass it on. And my guess is, well, it's happened to me. The more positive I am, the more I get received. Partnership. Who do you go with? Who's your human connections? Who are the people that you call and when you're down? Because we're all going to have up and down days. So I got a couple of people that I call. Who do you hang with? We talked about that. Get a coach. A coach can be another set of eyes out there to help you think through things. The coaching I've done for 25 years with principals and leaders in schools, superintendents, et cetera, tell me that number one, it's nice to have a coach that they don't report to, because they can be totally honest and talk about issues. Number two, they can work out multiple strategies with what's the upside and downside without going to a group of people who are inside the system. And we get more creative possibilities because maybe I've read something that would help them, and then I can help feed them ideas. So those are the top three that I get when I'm a coach. But sometimes if you just having a coach, whether it's formal or informal, it's really nice. Exercise. I get up every morning and my bike is right next to my bed, because if I don't go get coffee and go back to my bike, I won't do my 20 minutes on the bike. So I have to do it, and I'm usually checking my email while I'm biking so that I don't worry about how much time I'm spending on the bike. Otherwise, I just sit there, oh my God, it's much more positive and I feel better. And exercise, physical exercise to whatever level you can, helps my mental attitude. So journaling, I've never been a good journal person, but there are people who do journaling and it's wonderful. I've tried it a couple of times. I get about 3 days, but if you're a journaler and can keep a record and have a have a place to put down your thoughts, I highly recommend it. Just not one of the things that I necessarily do, but there are a lot of people who do it. Meditation. I talked about going into a broom closet. One time I went down to the Fayette area and I found this broom closet that I could go to and just clear my mind for 5 minutes. And of course, you could hear all kinds of things outside the broom closet, which were kind of funny. But anyway, the meditation, I would go into the auditorium and just breathe. Breathe deeply, clear your mind, calm yourself, because sometimes in the frenetic pace of the day, you just need a break in the action. Prayer, lots of research out there on prayer and meditation. I have a former person I coach who is very religious, and about every 2 weeks he sends me a passage from the Bible that he reads. And then I respond, how does that play out in the organizations or something that I'm doing right now? So pretty positive. Avocation, whether you're a coin collector, stamp collector, people play baseball, excuse me, play sports, badminton, pickleball. A lot of people I know now are playing pickleball. So have some woodworking, work with your hands, being able to say at the end of the day, I did that, is pretty positive. And one of the things that I started doing was reading. I never read till I was about 38. I'll tell you the story sometime, but it's all because of Art Casa. I started reading a lot of books. Now I'm up to about 1,200. But reading, I get if I get one idea out of a book, that's great. Now I read off education, I read business, spirituality, and other things because there's transferability. And I think sometimes if we only read education research, maybe we need to read something else about play or something else that excites us. Next. So I would like to finish with a story that we put in, Skip and I put in our book called The Training Companion. And it's called The Five Balls. And then I'll turn it back to Rosie after the story that I'm going to tell and see if there's some questions that we can answer. Looks like we got about 10 minutes left. I ran a little bit longer than I thought, but the story of the five balls. Every one of us is juggling five balls: work, family, health, friends, and integrity. The work ball is made of rubber. If you drop it, it's going to bounce back. Family, health, friends, and integrity are made of glass. If you drop it, it may shatter and may not ever be able to be replaced or put back together. So if you're going to drop something, drop work because it's going to come back. It'll be there for you. You want to maintain family, health, friends, and integrity. I hope you got one or two ideas out of today's webinar. Thank you for coming in and listening to what we talked about. And thank you for allowing me to talk today. Rosie, take it away.
Well, thank you, Bill. And that was quite a bit of a lot of ideas, a lot of strategies, things to think about. And I guess for me, I really appreciated hearing about the 4 vital ingredients to have a great mojo. And we definitely need to find ways to get our mojo on and to help other people find their mojo. But I'm just wondering, because I'm sure that some of the administrators listening will wonder, because we've all had those no-jo types on our staff, people who no matter what are going to be angry or no-jo types. And that can really bring down an administrator and make it hard for you to find your own mojo. So do you have any strategies for how to deal with the no-jos?
My next to the last book was 30 ways, it's called Responding to Resistance, 30 Ways to Manage Conflict in Schools. And it was published by Solution Tree back in 2019. And it's individual, small groups, and large groups, because what I find is the negativity is usually focuses on a conflict or something that's not right. So I would, somebody asked me, why do you have 30? And I said, because I had 29 and none of them worked. So I'm looking for 31. So that would be a place to start, because it has lots of literally strategies, 1, 2, 3s. But one is you got to talk to people, find out what the issue is, narrow it down, what really is it presenting. And it could be an external thing that, with a family, or God forbid, it could be drugs and alcohol. I mean, there's all kinds of things that it could be. But I will tell you, let me just share with you one more story that I got from Suzanne Bailey. The buffalo, and this is in the front of the book, the buffalo on the prairie knows that if it sees a thunderstorm coming, if it turns and walks away from it, it's going to last a long time. The buffalo also knows if it sees a thunderstorm coming, if it turns and walks toward it, it'll pass more quickly. So get your repertoire ready. I got 30 of them. Go for it.
Start walking. Yeah. No, thank you. And I do have to mention that I don't know anybody who reads more books than you do, Bill. I mean, you're an avid reader, and I'm going to ask if maybe you can give us, we will be posting this webinar and also the PowerPoint, but if you can also share with us some of your favorite books. I know you've given us a bunch of books that people just go back and listen to this again, suggestions and ideas for books, but I'm hoping that you'll also give us some books that people can look at that you think are probably like your 10 or 20 favorite books on this subject.
10 or 20? And do you
What?
have?
You can give us 100. I don't care. No, I don't know anybody really and truly that reads as much as you do. And so thank you for the wealth of book suggestions just in this hour that we had you with us. And I do have just one other question, and that is, and maybe it's
Let me just say one thing. On the web, on Morning Omnivore, I put up like 5 or 6 page summaries to see. Diane Zimmerman, a friend of mine that I go to all kinds of times, she says, I read your summaries to see if I really want to read the book. So, but,
exactly.
But there are a few that here's one that I'll share with you. Andros Arian wrote a book called The Fourfold Way. Here are the four pieces. One is show up and be fully present. 2, pay attention to what has heart and meaning. 3, tell the truth without blame or judgment. And 4, be open to outcome. And then I put parentheses, don't be wedded to what one way to get there, because there's multiple ways.
Absolutely. I totally agree. One last question, and that is, I'm just wondering for you, what strategies have you found to be the most effective for you, besides maybe hiding in the closet or whatever, that really help you stay, create that balance in your life? And what is it for people that maybe haven't really started yet, but want to make that change? What would you say are the strategies that would give you the most bang for your buck?
Well, first of all, have a good support group that you can call, who are your friends. And my definition of a friend is someone who is glad to see you and they have no plan for your immediate improvement. They're going to accept you with all your FOMOs or whatever, but they also will confront you. And I got 3 or 4 of those, Art Costa, Diane Zimmerman, Marnie Walmsley, and a few others that I go to. So if I really have a bad day and I'm down, I got to call one of them to try to mediate that. Number 2, if I'm in a school and I'm a principal, I'm going to see a teacher teach, because that's what gets me excited, to see that magic that happens. Number 3, read something that has got some creative side to it. That's why I started reading on the business side, because I did not say business has the answer. Business has some really creative mental models that we could use. And so that's why 75% of my books that I read are probably on the business side. So reading is helpful. And even though my kids are 42 and 48 now, I call them, hi, how's it going? Just connecting with family,
Absolutely. And as you're talking, I think one for me is reading comics, like the newspaper comics, like just being able to laugh, like just to kind of let go, and some no-brainer kind of thing.
That's another one. Don't watch the news before you go to bed. Like reruns of Cheers or something that's funny. Yeah.
Totally. We have one other question from a person, Kathleen, who it's not really on the topic, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What advice or suggestions can you give to newly certified leaders looking for an administrative position?
I'm looking for an administrative position. I'm not done yet. Bottom line, it's not going to come through a paper ad, or it's really going to be through your network. And who are the people that can speak for you and get you past that avalanche of papers, because people are applying for everything under the sun. And so use your network first. If you go to conferences or on Zoom or whatever, develop those relationships. One of the things I think you have to do is, in whatever resume or vita that you come up with, what can you do that nobody else can do? If you can look it up on the Google, it's not. So what have you done? Show initiative, show I did this and I got this kind of result. It could be somebody's work, some author's work. But use a network is probably your best one.
Great, thank you. And I second that. And I just want to give a plug for CAS, because we have a great network across the state of Connecticut, and we love to have conversations with all of you. So I know pre-K through 8, we have a ropes networking group that meets every other month. And so we'd love to have people join that, or just email me and let me know that you would like to get connected with other people. We have lots of committees and things that we'd love to have people. So great having you today, Bill. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of the strategies, all of the things that you shared with us this afternoon. You've given us lots of suggestions and strategies for taking care of ourselves so that we're ready and able to help take care of other people.
Can I put a plug in for the series of 7?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's Bob, if you can go to the last page, I'm starting it's called Compliance Cop to Culture Coach, 7 2-hour shots. There it is. That Southwest Metro out of Minneapolis is doing communication, collaboration, coaching, conflict, change, creativity, and courage. And it's all through Zoom, 7 2-hour shots, but the registration ends on Friday. So if people are interested, go to 288 Southwest Metro. But thank you. Thanks for having me, Rosie.
Oh, well, thank you for being here today. I can't think of anything more important than scheduling that me time so that we can ensure a balanced lifestyle for ourselves and be there for other people. So thank you so much. And I have to say, we're really excited to have Dr. Sommers back for a follow-up webinar with us after the holiday break in 2022. So be sure to check the CAS News Blast and our website for registration information, which will be ready probably sometime in the middle to late December or early January. Thanks again, Bill, for speaking with us today and sharing these powerful strategies for balancing our personal and professional selves. So thank you. Registration is currently open for our final CAS webinar for 2021. Can you believe that? On December 16th at 9:30 a.m., we will welcome Fairfield University's Dr. Paula Gil Lopez, who will share her expertise on the what, the why, and the how of self-care. A link to register for this workshop appears on the screen and is also on our CAS website. And once again, I want to thank our corporate partners, Horace Mann, College Funding Coach, MCM Fundraising, Jostens, and Pullman and Cumley for their continuing support of CAS professional development for principals and educators in Connecticut. I would also like to thank all of you for joining us today. This webinar has been recorded and will be posted along with a copy of the PowerPoint and hopefully some of Bill's favorite books for us for future viewing on the CAS website. So please share the link with your colleagues once it's posted. Again, thank you, Bill, and to everyone else for joining us today. And if I don't get a chance to say it again, on behalf of all of us at CAS, we wish you all a joyous and relaxing winter holiday break with your family and friends, and all the best to each of you in 2022. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your evening.